गुरु ऐसे विनय दे दे, गुणगान करूं तेरा। इस बालक के सर पे गुरु हाथ रहे तेरा। गुरु ऐसे विनय दे दे, गुणगान करूं तेरा। इस बालक
program recorded at the Council for a Parliament of the World's Religions, held August 28 through September 4th, 1993, in Chicago, Illinois. Now to our program.
स्वागतम, नमस्ते, जय जिनेन्द्र। ओंकारं बिंदु संयुक्तं नित्यं ध्यायन्ति योगिनः। कामदं मोक्षदं चैव ओंकाराय नमो नमः। नमो अर्हत सिद्धाचार्योपाध्याय सर्वसाधुभ्यः। Learned colleagues, friends and fellow men, it's a great pleasure and privilege to be with you all this morning here in Chicago, where we have all assembled to celebrate the centenary of the first World Religion Parliament, which met 100 years ago. In the pursuit of our further learning, today we are going to talk about the subject, Jain approach to self-realization. Well, what is self-realization? Self-realization is the intuitional knowledge of one's own true self, and therefore may be defined as the direct, immediate, first-hand communion of the devotee with the divine, when the conscious connection of the soul is suspended from the activities of the body, the senses, the speech, and the mind. This is always associated with an immense, supersensuous, supranormal, ineffable experiential bliss, transforming the total personality of the aspirant concerned. This incidence of self-realization heralds an unprecedented era of enlightened new vision in the life of the aspirant, bestowing upon him the overall beatitude. It grants upon the aspirant an ineffaceable guarantee of complete and permanent release from the transmigratory existence, and has been considered as the most important, unparalleled and sublime event in the life of the aspirant, as 107th stanza of Yoga Sara mentions. जैसे ध्यान सिद्ध से सिद्ध थता भगवान ते आत्म दर्शन थकी एम जान निर्भ्रान. Well, self-realization is not the monopoly of any particular group of people or any particular religious tradition. It's universal and international. And therefore, we find its description in all the leading schools of the planet. About 2100 years ago, Maharshi Patanjali gives us the idea of the path of self-realization in the form of 8 steps, yama, niyama and so forth. It is also briefly and lucidly described in the 6th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the Atma Sanyama Yoga. In ancient Upanishadic literature we find it in the form of trio of Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana. And so also in the Buddhist literature we find in the form of Prajna, Sheel and Samadhi. In the Christian and the Islamic tradition we find it among the mystic saints when they climb the top of the ladder of their spiritual experience, they attain to the mystic experience and accomplish self-realization. With this introduction, now we come to the subject proper of Jain approach to self-realization. The Jain tradition enjoins the accomplishment of self-realization by a synergistic combination of enlightened knowledge, enlightened faith and enlightened conduct. And for accomplishing this task, 4 main means are recommended. Satsanga, Swadhyaya, virtuosity and meditation. We take up Satsanga. By Satsanga is generally meant association with the holy ones with a view to obtain spiritual growth. Appropriate, intentional and planned association is one such activity in our life which always produces its effect on the participants. Hence the proverb, man is influenced by the company he keeps. So here, during the sadhana of satsanga, when the aspirant associates himself devotionally either with the pious saints or with the enlightened scholars, he not only learns from the sermons given to him, but he also imbibes by closely observing the day-to-day activities of the saints. The unique and extraordinary advantages of satsanga in the modern Jain literature have been described aptly, clearly, authentically and exhaustively by Srimad Rajchandra, who has been the spiritual guide of Mahatma Gandhi. He enjoins the two stanzas 37 and 9 of Atma Siddhi Shastra, which read as follows. एम विचारी अंतरे शोधे सदगुरु योग काम एक आत्मार्थ नो बीजो नहीं मन रोग सेवे सदगुरु चरण ने त्यागी दई निज पक्ष पामे ते परमार्थ ने निज पद नो ले लक्ष्य निज पद नो ले लक्ष्य. In our Indian tradition, the resultant benefits of the association of the holy ones are well described by the great saint philosopher and the propounder of Advaita philosophy, Srimad Shankaracharya ji, in the following order. Satsangatve nissangatvam nissangatve nirmohatvam nirmohatve nischala chittam nischala chitte jivan muktihi. So, when we are doing the sadhana of satsanga, the following 5 points should be kept in mind. First is regarding the timing. A beginner may start the holy association, say once in a week or twice in a week, and gradually increase it to daily attendance of the satsanga sessions. Second point is alertness. When we go for satsanga, we should not have any preconceived ideas in our mind. We go with an open mind because we go to learn. Again, we should have an intense internal reverence for the preceptor whose sermons we are going to listen. Without that devotional approach, we can't get appropriate benefit. It will always be good to take down the notes during the association so that we can have a firm grasp and a clear grasp of the tenets which are depicted in the sermons. The third point is regarding the patience and the perseverance. In the initial stages, an average man is not able to concentrate in this holy association. So one has to be patient and perseverant and follow, so that in due course of time the mind gets ready for the spiritual pursuits. The fourth point is priority. These are the days of hurry, worry and curry. Everyone says, oh, we have no time for any spiritual pursuits. But he who really wants his final beatitude will give top priority to such holy associations. He will subordinate his other activities so that enough time can be spared for such holy associations. And the last point regarding the holy association is the zealous search The most important single external instrument for self-realization is an enlightened preceptor. Without an enlightened preceptor, we cannot make a rapid progress. If one is fortunate enough to get such an enlightened preceptor and carry out his instructions scrupulously in his life, not only he will be able to grasp the basic tenets, but he will have a very rapid and almost an offensive spiritual progress. Apart from these holy associations, there are other minor forms of holy associations, although in the form of idol sight, idol worship, idol prayer, and scripture worship, and the ritual known as puja is also very popular and very inspiring to a large section of the community. This much for satsanga. We now come to the next. Swadhyaya. What is Swadhyaya? Swadhyaya is scriptural studies with a view to obtain spiritual growth. The Jain tradition gives great importance to this type of scriptural study, both for the householders and for the ascetics. And that is why it is incorporated as a part and parcel of the daily spiritual practice for both. देव पूजा गुरु पास्ते स्वाध्याय संयम तपः दानम चेति गृहस्थानाम षट्कर्माणि दिने दिने. So, when we undertake the scriptural studies, all types of studies are welcome, but the Jain tradition insists on the 7 important principles, which are known as the fundamental 7 principles. The soul, the matter, the influx of the karma, the bondage, the stoppage, the partial shedding, and the liberation. When the aspirant is able to grasp these 7 basic tenets and applies it in his day-to-day activity, we come to the stage of Gneya. Certain elements are to be known only. Here, certain elements are to be discarded. And Upadeya, certain elements have to be accomplished in our life. This much for the householders. For the ascetics, scriptural study is both qualitatively and quantitatively of highest importance. Actually, the 2 main pillars are Swadhyaya and meditation. From Swadhyaya, the ascetic passes into meditation. From meditation, he comes back to Swadhyaya, and like that, he makes great spiritual progress. As has been depicted in the stanza 232 of Pravachan Sara by Sri Kundakunda Acharya, whose original words state Agam Chitta Tato Jetta, meaning thereby that the effort at the scriptural study is of the topmost priority in the life of an ascetic. Now, apart from this type of scriptural study, 5 categories of special scriptural studies have been enjoined in the 25th aphorism in the 9th chapter of Tattvar Sutra by Sri Uma Swami Acharya, which reads like this: Vachana Pruchna Anupreksha Amnaya Dharmopadeshaha. Meaning thereby that reading, questioning, reflecting, reciting and preaching, these are the 5 main forms of scriptural studies enjoined by Sri Uma Swami Acharya. When this type of scriptural study is undertaken systematically under the guidance of an enlightened saint, knowledge profusely grows and one is firmly established in the enlightened faith. This much for the Swadhyay. We pass on to the next stage of virtuosity. A sound footing of the spiritual life is not possible without an optimum degree of virtuosity. Just as a tall building requires a firm foundation, or admission to the medical school requires a high ranking, so also for self-realization an optimum amount of virtuosity is required. When the above practices are undertaken, certain virtues like selflessness and humility develop. But for further virtuosity, the aspirant combines the negative and the affirmative approach. On one side, he gets rid of his shortcomings like the anger, the pride and the deceit. Concurrently, he makes a firm resolve for imbibing the virtues like forgiveness, contentment, straightforwardness and so forth. Thus, he has now obtained a fair degree of virtuosity. But for further virtuosity, the Jain scriptures recommend a very subtle, scientific and exhaustive program of virtue development and virtue imbibation in its logical and chronological order in the following 6 categories. The first is the renunciation or giving up major vices in our life, as enjoined in Samaisar Natak, like gambling, hunting, stealing and so forth. Juwa amish madira dari आहे तक चोरी पर नारी यही सप्त व्यसन दुखदाई दुरित मूल दुर्गति के जाई. In the second stage, there is acquisition of the basic virtues in the form of accepting the small vows and accepting also vegetarian way of life. In the third stage, there is the development of the 35 virtues of the aspirant of the righteous path known as Marganusarita, described in many scriptures, especially in the Yoga Shastra of Sri Hemchandracharya. In the fourth category, the 12 vows of the householder are accepted, which are well known in our Indian tradition, like non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, celibacy, and limited possession. These have been enjoined in all the householders' conduct. The Ratnakand Shravak Achar, the Hindi version reads like this. गृही जनों का विकल चरित भी त्रिविध बताया, जिन वर ने अणुव्रत गुणव्रत शिक्षाव्रत यो नाम पुकारा गणधर ने। रहा 5 दा अणुव्रत भी वह गुणव्रत भी वह त्रिविध रहा, शिक्षाव्रत यह रहा चतुर्विध, रुचि से पालो सुबुध आहा। The last 2 stages consist of increasing stages of renunciation by the enlightened aspirant known as Pratima, and the last stage is that of accepting the life of an ascetic with the 27 or the 28 Mulaguna. When this degree of virtuosity is obtained by the aspirant, a sequential beneficial order dawns in his life. The information received by him gets converted into knowledge. The knowledge which he receives gets converted into wisdom. And the wisdom condenses to yield upon him the self-realization. This much for the virtuosity. Now we come to the last means, and that is meditation. Though it is last, it is the most important part of the sadhana for self-realization. In general, meditation means purifying and concentrating the mind on any object or individual with a view to obtain spiritual progress. Jain tradition gives it supreme importance because it is considered as the most important internal austerity among the 12 types of penance enjoined by Tattvar Sutra. Dhyana or meditation has been considered of the supreme importance. And the life of Lord Mahavira itself is a glorious example of the importance of meditation, when we find that in his life for long 12.5 years he practices deep states of meditation, at the end of which he attains to omniscience and becomes recognized in the history of the world as one of the most important champions of the science and art of meditation. So when we practice the meditation, following points should be kept in mind. Place and posture. We may meditate in our worship room, or we may be meditating in a temple or a monastery or a more secluded place. Regarding the posture, the Padmasana and the Ardha Padmasana are the most accepted forms, but Siddhasana and Sukhasana are also regarded as important. One unique contribution of the Jain tradition is the meditation in the standing posture, known as Kayotsarg Mudra or Khadgasana. Regarding food and work, the extremes of both should be avoided because they are not conducive to the steadiness and purity of mind. The path, the third point, is the path of self-realization. Meditation is a long one. It is studied with many ups and downs. So if we keep up regularity in practice and continuity in effort, these ups and downs will be evened out and we will be able to get a pure and concentrated mind in our life. During the meditation, during the periods of meditation, at intervals of every few minutes, we should form the habit of remembering God, remembering the divine, the Panch Parmeshthi with the Namaskar mantra. This is very useful. Or if one is still further in his progress, he may occasionally peep inside and meditate upon the subtle virtues, as has been enjoined in Samadhi Shataka 50, stanza number 50. Atmajnanat param karyam na buddhau dharayet chiram kuryat arthav vashat kinchit vakkayabhyam atatparah. Now with this, we come to the sub-final stage of meditation. Three special types of meditation is now practiced. One is the contemplation of the 12 special forms known as Bara Bhavana, Bharat Anuvekha. Second is the 4 special types of attributes which are conducive to the quietude and the purity of mind, as depicted by many acharyas, especially in Amidgati, Samayik part, the first stanza, originally and in its English version reads like this. Tattveshu maitreem guneshu pramodam klisteshu jiveshu krupa paratvam madhyasthu bhavam viparit vruttau sada mamatma vidadhatu deva. The English version reads, O Lord, grant me ever and none affection towards all living beings, joyful respect towards the virtuous ones, compassion and sympathy for the afflicted ones, and tolerance towards the perverted and the ill-behaved. The third type of advanced meditation consists of meditating on the sublime, superhuman and divine virtues of the Pancha Parmeshtin. And with some practice in this form of meditation, we come to the last stage of meditation, the final deep. The final deep. The aspirant who has undergone the above forms of sadhana, his mind is now pure, his intellect is highly discriminative and sharp, and he can now contemplate on the divine virtues of the Absolute Self. And in this process, he discards all the objects of the world, his body, his senses, his speech, and even the process of meditation as non-self.
Please turn this cassette over to side 2.
Absorb himself in the pure knower, the true I. मेरा सही स्वरूप क्या है? If he is able to absorb himself in the absolute nature of the divine, all the knots of the delusion are destroyed. And an ineffable bliss is experienced by the aspirant. It passes into nirvikalpa samadhi. While coming back to the plane of consciousness, he is a completely changed personality. The unknown takes over the upper hand in all the activities of his life, which are surcharged with divinity, and a constant state of divine awakening and a spontaneous dispassion for all the worldly objects is accomplished. If such a state of nirvikalpa samadhi continues for few minutes, even the subtlest defilements of the soul are annihilated in toto. Omniscience is achieved, infinite knowledge and bliss are accomplished. The immortality is attained to, which is described as follows in Apurva Avsar. चार कर्म घन घाति ते व्यवच्छेद जा भवना बीज तणो आत्यंतिक नाश जो सर्व भाव ज्ञाता दृष्टा सह शुद्धता कृत कृत्य प्रभु वीर्य अनंत प्रकाश जो. And with this we come to the summary. Even though it is true that it is not possible to depict the path of self-realization in words or by speech, it is always accomplishable by all of us, or the more thoughtful and the wise ones in these days, in this planet, in our country, in the place where we stay, by a balanced and synergistic combination of the four means described, which leads to a steady, pure, concentrated mind, leads to equanimity and self-realization. I would like to make a personal small comment based on my belief, my opinion and my experience. The powers of the Prime Minister and of the President and the intoxication of massive industrial empires are far inferior to the great and ineffable bliss of the soul. This is the experience of all the great masters of the world, and it is also the experience of the person who is talking to you at the moment. Let us therefore resolve today that we will try our best to enjoin the teachings of the great omniscient Lord, and the wise ones and the enlightened ones will make the best of the human life and attain to a state higher than which exists nowhere and at no time in the universe. Well, I will end with Antamangala. शांति शांति करः श्रीमान शांति दिशति मे गुरुः शांतिरेव सदा तेषां येषां शांतिः गृहे गृहे। ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। Thank you all very much for your kind listening. God bless you. God bless everyone. Okay. Yes. Some gentlemen have 5 minutes for questioning. Yes, please.
What do you think that the Parliament is good for, that who will get benefit from?
Those who make sincere efforts to recognize and respect others as they respect themselves will get the benefit. Because all the great masters have said the same thing, that treat everyone else, not only human beings, animals, insects and plants, as you treat yourself. So if we try and treat the people of the world as we would like to be treated by others, I think, and if we have a broad heart to accept the views and the ritual differences or the external performances of the various traditions of our planet, I think we will have a true universal brotherhood, and our problems of this mindness and I-ness and dogmas will disappear. Man will love man in its true sense, and that is all that is our object of meeting over here.
Another question I have, what do you think that the members of the Parliament and the Parliament itself that we work for, so that the status of the world changes to a better one?
The work is not so easy. We have all assembled here, it's very good, but we will, first of all, at the end of our session, we will have to formulate on which line we are going to work. So, summary of the proceedings, then summary of the decisions. We will have to work regular follow-up at the intervals of, say, 3 months or 6 months in 2 ways. At sectional level, when the people of the persons concerned in the faith meet, and at important places where people of various traditions can comfortably reach. If we follow this method of continuing this fellowship, this universal brotherhood, and we become lovers of truth, lovers of justice, and lovers of respect for others, gradually the wide things which separate us will gradually narrow down. Though some individuality will always remain. Let it remain. Unity among the diversity is no form, no problem. But the inside diversity is the one which we don't want, and to wipe it out or to diminish it, we have all met here together.
I have some more questions.
I have no problem.
What do you are going to contribute personally to the Parliament and what you are going to work with?
Well, I am a very small man for the Herculean task we have kept before us, but we'll get the something. From practical points of one is we are going to establish a center for ecology. Actually, we have already been allocated a small center for ecological improvement. So the main things will be general cleanliness and heavy plantation in the areas which are under our control, and sending the people in the surrounding villages for teaching them that plants should be preserved and cleanliness should be given big preference. Another point, we are already undertaking eye camps, diagnostic camps for the medical or the health care pursuits. And the third thing which we want to do, we will be doing it in about say 1.5 years' time, is to keep the students in the hostel, in the atmosphere which is not vitiated by the modern materialistic trend. We want to people, the young people, to also have a spiritual insight so that they will respect themselves, their parents, their society, their country, and the whole humanity at large. So these are the three main ways which we can contribute in betterment of the society. But there are many ways, and I think with the limited resources of manpower and others, these three things we are keeping in mind, and we are going to implement the best of our ability.
Another question I would like to put is, do you think that interreligious dialogue will help to attain a common platform where the religious leaders may find a way to tolerate each other and work for world peace?
I think they can do it, but to be frank, we will have to be truthful in our intentions and our inner inclination. I just say, hello sir, how are you? And then I have no love for you. Just an outward gesture will not work. Outward gesture or showmanship will not work. So if we, the spiritual leaders who come together, should have an open heart and a genuine desire to cooperate with each other, if we are honest in our inclination, honest in our inner choice, then I think it should work. If we get 50-60% success, it is a fair one. Big tasks are not accomplished in few years. They take decades. Doesn't matter. We should try again and again with an always optimistic view in our life. That is what I would do. I would like to do.
My last question is, in all the churches